King Sonia you know our good shepherd, the Ewa.
Hi everyone, how you all doing? If you can hear me, can you let me know?
I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. So I've gotten an alternative tutor. I'm not sure why the tutor that is supposed to take the class is not here. Possibly he's stuck somewhere. So I'll keep trying to reach him. But Damilola is going to be joining the call and he will be able to answer your questions about the assignment and be able to walk you through some of the laws that might be confusing for you. We've already posted the resources and the assignments, and I expect that you've gone through those by now and you have a couple of questions that you want to ask. Again, apologies for the delay. I will keep trying to reach him, and Damilola will be taking the class now. All right. Thank you all. Damilola, are you here now?
I am she. Hi. Good
Hi.
evening. Yeah, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Can everybody hear me? Let me
I
just
can
drop a
hear
message
you.
in the chat if
I
you
can
can.
hear you.
Hi, hi, hi.
Hi. Good evening.
Apologies. Hi, good evening. Apologies for the wait. So I'm just going to share my screen right now. We're going to get started with discussing what we have today, which is the laws of UX. And yeah, so basically it's just going to be a discussion where I walk you through the different laws, some of the different laws of UX that exist out there. And of course, UX means user experience, right? So we're just going to be walking through some of them. I'm going to be showing some examples of these principles in application. And if you have any questions, you can, as well, just ask and you can take it from there. So give me a second, let me pull up the slides and we can get started. Can you guys see my screen? Um, awesome, awesome. Yeah, apologies. I had to ensure that everything is well arranged and structured. Okay, so basically, the things we're going to be discussing today are pretty straightforward. We're going to be talking about the laws of UX. We're going to be talking about we're going to be sharing some illustrations. We're going to explain what usability heuristics means. And then I'm going to be sharing some examples of usability heuristics in, action. And of course, by the end of this class, I'm also going to share resources where you can read more, learn more about laws of UX. Because the truth is, we cannot cover everything right now. There's a bunch of them. We're just going to talk about the ones that are very common. And then, we take questions. All right. Yeah, so by the way, because I'm sharing my screen, I'm not able to see the chats right now. So if you have any questions, I probably drop them in the chat and I'm not able to address them. Just hold on to them. I'm going to address them later towards the end of the class. Okay, so moving on, let's start with the definition, right? What are the laws of UX? Because we need to understand the definition before proceeding to identify the laws one by one. So the laws of UX are a collection of best practices that designers can consider when building interfaces. All right. Basically, they are a bunch of guidelines. Like we said, if you remember from our initial class, we said design should be and is all about solving problems, right? We solve problem with designs, right? So one of the guidelines that helps designers or that will help you in your part as a designer to design solutions, to craft actual solutions to problems that people are facing is of course ensuring that your product has excellent user experience, right? And so the whole essence of these laws of UX are just, guides to help you make the right design decision so that at the end of the day, users would end up abandoning your app, right? So it's just a bunch of rules and guidelines that you can follow. And by the way, we're also going to share these slides after now. So you don't have to just listen to what I'm saying. You can read through whatever is on the screen after the class. Okay, so yeah, laws of UX are just a bunch of guidelines that help you build better user experiences for your users, as simple as that. Now let's dive right into talking about some of them, and then we can go on from there. All right, so the first one we have here is Jacob's Law. All right, I know Jacob sounds like somebody's name, but maybe that's because it is. Right. So Jacob's Law says that users spend most of their time on other sites. This means that users prefer your site to work the same way as all the other sites they already know. Right. A good example of this would be that you've heard people say things like, don't reinvent the wheel. In fact, there's a design related book that says, don't make me think. All right. The idea is that people don't want to have to guess. They don't want to have to go on a hunt. They don't want to have to rack their brain to understand what they are seeing on your site, right? When we're talking about intro to design, I was using an example of, fintech apps, right? Right now, everybody that uses an app, that uses a phone, that uses, banking apps and any other apps, understand the basics of how these apps work. I know that for any financial app, I know that if I want to send money, I have to click on the transfer button. I know that if I want to access my, some of my settings, generate statements, I have to click on the settings button. There's a pattern to these things. I understand this pattern already. So if a new app comes into existence today and then they are reinventing the wheel, things are not where they used to be, you are going to force people to leave. You're going to force people to just get tired of your app and walk away. What this law is saying is that you should not reinvent the wheel. People expect things to be in a certain way. So when you are crafting experiences for them, even though you are trying to be innovative and everything like that, there should be atoms of familiarity. right? There should be atoms of familiarity. You can't just come and change things. An example of that would be if you go online right now and if you go to Jumia.com. By the way, for people that if there's anyone here that don't know what Jumia is a platform like Amazon where e-commerce platform where you can purchase items and the likes of that. So if you go to Jumia today and you go to Amazon.com today, you will notice that there's a similarity in how the items are structured. There's a similarity in how you can filter and sort through items. There's a similarity in how the elements, the content are displayed. Why is that? Because they understand that people already have an idea of how e-commerce platforms are supposed to display information. So they know for a fact that if they change this, if they do something else instead, they are going to make people start wondering, where do I go? How do I click this? What do I do? How do I move around? How do I navigate, right? Which is why, of course, when you go online today and you see different variations of e-commerce sites, there is always a similarity. It's not that people are just copying others. No, it's because you are not supposed to change the wheel completely. You're not supposed to reinvent the wheel. There should always be an atom of familiarity so people will understand what they are seeing and they can relate with it. All right. There was this study, still talking about familiarity. There was this study that was carried out a while back. I can't remember how the entire story, how it was. But basically, right, there was a test. You know, these top 100 jams records that used to be there, where we have a list of top 100 songs in the world on the charts, right? So the same way, Spotify uses the same approach to suggest songs to people, right? So basically, if you use Spotify a lot or Apple Music and everything, you notice that sometimes when you scroll through, you see folders or albums that says just for you, special picks for you and everything. What you would find is that in as much as the algorithm is trying to use your previous music choices to suggest new songs for you, they always include some old songs that you've listened to, right? Have you not wondered why you can open a random Spotify playlist today and just playing through a couple of new songs, but there would always be one or two familiar songs that you've probably known before, you've listened to a couple of time included in those songs. Why is that? Because the truth is that if you're listening through a bunch of new songs and every song that you're listening to is new and new and new, even if you enjoy some of them, you're going to get tired at some point because there is no song that you can resonate with. There's no song that you can sing along with. So Spotify understands that, which is why if you're listening through maybe new, a randomly curated playlist on Spotify, you would always get to one point where they play you a song, maybe one of your past favorite songs that you like. Why? Because it makes sense that if you're going through a lot of unknowns, you should come to a point where you know something and then you can feel relaxed. So if you're already thinking about exiting before, because now it's playing a song that you have more reason to just stay, listen through the song and see what comes next. So basically, I had to digress a little bit. So basically, that's what familiarity does, right? Familiarity helps you retain users, which is why every single platform out there that are in the same niche, they follow the same approach. Why? Because people already understand that these approaches work. How these approaches work, and they expect your own to be so. So don't say you want to design an e-commerce website tomorrow and then it's looking like a hospital app or it's looking like a real estate app. You're going to drive people with, they won't understand what you're showing them. All right, so that's basically a little bit of explanation of what Jacob's law is all about, right? And then we have Hick's law. Now, Hick's law says that the time it takes to make a decision increases with the number and complexity of choices. So basically, what this law is advising us to do is to break tasks into small chunks, right? And don't overwhelm your users. Don't too much choices breeds problems, right? There's a very, very relatable example or application of this law. A lot of us have gone to e-commerce sites like Amazon and the rest to shop for things, right? You would notice that if you open up these platforms with the idea or the notion of, oh, I have some cash to spare, I don't know what I want to buy yet, let me just scroll through and see if I'll find one or two things to buy, right? I don't know if any of us have ever done that before. What you find is that as you start scrolling through, right, you start seeing a lot of options. I mean, oh, I'm seeing these blazers, I love them a lot. Oh, I'm seeing these sneakers, I love them a lot. Oh, this is a brand new casing for my phone that would make sense. You see a lot of things, and at the end of the day, we end up adding a lot of items to our cart. Now, we know that we're not going to purchase all of them, but we just want to add them there so that when we come back later and we try to make a decision, we don't have to start scrolling through the list of items or the list of options that we had before, right? So basically what happens at that point is that we are trying to slim down our choices. We had thousands of products to pick from. We selected from those thousands. Now we have like maybe 20 in our cart. We'll still have to come back to select from the 20, maybe pick out 5 from those 20, and then maybe delete those ones and put them in save for later. And then come back and look at those 5 and be like, okay, out of these 5, which one do I really need, right? So you would see that what a single decision of, oh, I have some spare cash, I want to buy something, has led you through a whole spectrum of actions where you have to filter through these and then create another list, and then it's a lot of work. I mean, instead of you to just your ability to open the e-commerce platform, make a purchase and work out has been taken away from you. Now you have to do a lot of assignments in order to complete the action that you intended in the first place. So it's the same thing with design, right? If you give users too many choices, they're going to get carried away, right? They are going to get carried away. They're going to waste a lot of time or take a lot of time in trying to figure out what the next steps are. So basically, Hick's law is trying to say you should minimize choices, right? And if I go to the next slide, you see an example of what I mean. All right, look at Netflix. Netflix is a perfect example of Hick's law, right? Because of course, Netflix has a whole lot of movies for you to choose from, like a whole lot. You can get carried away, right? But what you will notice is that when you open Netflix today, right, even though there is, imagine that everything on Netflix is not categorized, is not properly arranged for you. Imagine that you just have a list 1 to 1 million movies and you have to scroll through every single one of them to choose one. You're going to get lost. You're going to get carried away. So basically what they've done is that they've categorized things. They've categorized all their movies based on your preferences, right? So if you open Netflix today, of course, you see, the top 10 movies or the top, it's mostly always 10, the top 10 movies in your country today. And then if you had seen a couple of movies on Netflix before, you now see sections like, oh, based on the movies you've watched, because you watched these, you would like these. Like they've streamlined the process for you. So instead of me to be like, oh, I saw Rattlesnake yesterday, and Rattlesnake was interesting. Let me see if I can find other movies like Rattlesnake. Netflix is now telling you that you don't have to go and find that. Just because you've seen Rattlesnake, here are other movies that fall under the Rattlesnake category, right? And all you have to do is just click to watch. Like that makes sense. That makes sense. And basically that applies, or that relates to everything, right? In your approach to designing product, in your approach to trying to come up with solutions for users, you should always keep it at the back of your mind that the lesser the number of choices, the better. Don't overwhelm people. Of course, we talked about the fact that you should not reinvent the wheel, right? And you should also not overwhelm people. Like if there is something that they need to do, make it clear to them that this is how they're expected to do it, or this is how they can perform that action. Don't make them start thinking. I've opted off a lot of platforms or a lot of websites in the past just because I didn't understand what the next steps were supposed to be. Like just because it was too stressful. And the funny thing is that no matter how important you think your product is, chances are there's another one out there that can probably do it better. I'm not saying definitely, but probably do it better, right? I mean, so imagine that people were complaining about Netflix all the time. Netflix is that people port to Prime. Like there's Prime, there's Hulu, there's a lot of them out there. So if for some reason Netflix starts, they know that if they start misbehaving, people are going to port. So because of that, they are always streamlining. They're always streamlining their workflows. And there is this update that they added not too long ago that really stood out. All right. So before now, if you were watching a movie on Netflix and then maybe it's a series, sometimes series have long intros. Before they made these updates, you had to watch the intro or forward it by yourself, right? So even if the intro is 2 minutes long or 2 minutes, 30 seconds long, you have to either watch through it or forward it. But all of a sudden, I noticed an update that automatically helps you skip through the intro, right? Like it, so if you're watching a movie today and then maybe you're watching a series and then intros are 2 minutes long, when you want to start a new episode, right, it's just going to skip through the intro. So you don't have to worry about forwarding it anymore. That was amazing for me, right? Because I like watching series. I like watching series, and I don't want to have to go through the stress of having to touch my phone or touch my remote or touch my laptop whenever I'm working. I just like to set the laptop down, sit back and relax, right? So that would have helped me streamline that process, and that's actually amazing. I noticed it. I was like, wow, this is amazing, right? So you should always think in that approach, think in that manner. Like, what are the actions that you need people to be able to do? How can you make their life easier when they're performing this action, right? Those are very, very important things that Hick's law takes into account. So in summary, be sure to minimize the choices so that you can increase the time that it takes to go to perform actions on your project or product. Okay, we have another example here of remotes, the Apple TV remotes and your regular remotes out there. Funny enough, right? I have 3 pictures here. Funny enough, a lot of remotes in the past have structures like this where there are a lot of buttons and stuff like that. Chances are, for years, we don't use 90% of these buttons here. We don't know what they are for. I mean, I used to struggle with trying to figure out what some of these buttons used to do in the past, right? It's crazy. You don't need a chunk of them, but they are there and they're just taking space, right? Compare that to the Apple TV remotes, right? That is just straight to the point, right? Basically, all we want you to do is browse through whatever it is that you want, play, pause. And if you want to access the menu, you can easily access the menu. Easy. It's literally doing the same thing that every other remote does, but it's helping you. It's removing the distractions. All right. Another good example is, of course, we know that Apple TV is for, Apple TV. Apple TV remote is for Apple TV, right? But let's look at this third image on the right. Like, if you have a smart TV in your home, chances are you're going to have a regular remote that looks like this third one on the right. Now, this is way better than the first one still, because it's streamlined. We don't have a lot of excess buttons, unlike this first image where I can't even count the number of buttons that are here. So you get the idea. It's all about streamlining. Remove anything that is a distraction, anything that is not necessary, anything that users can do without, take it out, right? Anything that you can put somewhere else that just don't distract them. That's the same reason why if you're working on a landing page or you're working on a website or whatever it is that you're working on, you would always hear people give you the advice that this does not have to be in this section. We can create a separate page for it, right? Or instead of putting all this content here, let's break it into 2 sections. You hear things like that a lot. Why? Because you don't want to overwhelm people. You want to give people the important information at the get-go, right? At a glance. So basically, that's the summary of this. Don't confuse people. Don't give them too many options. Streamline their process for them so that it's easier for them to perform whatever action you need them to perform on your product. All right. Then we have Miller's law. All right. Miller's law basically says people can't store a lot of times in their working memory, so make it easier for them to process and scan through items. Okay, so in summary, all right, people forget things easily, right? Somebody can be scrolling through your sites right now or scrolling through your app, and if you ask them to repeat or tell you what they saw, the first thing that they saw when they opened the app, it's 90% of the time they are not going to be able to remember, right? So basically, Miller's law is saying that people easily forget. So you need to make items that are important stand out to people, right? That's the summary, right? Organize content to help them process and memorize. Right, that's the thing, and it's when things stand out to people that they are able to easily memorize it. If everything looks the same, they cannot take in that many information. It's not going to work for them. Now let's go into an example of what this law means. Excuse me. So let's start from this example on the left, right, and then example on the right, and then we'll walk through that. So basically, you'd see that each of these contents they have hierarchy. Like there's a reason why everything is structured that the way they are structured. Let's start from the left. If you are entering phone numbers, right, you are trying to I mean, you guys have used a lot of apps before now, but there are sometimes you're asked to enter your phone number and everything. You will notice that some platforms separate your country code from the actual phone number and break it down, right? And then some platforms just put everything together. Now, the difference between this before where 629,555 is together and this separation is that this separation is easier to assimilate, right? Funny enough, in when I was trying to memorize my cell number, right? The way I call out my cell number to people follows this approach because I used a lot of apps at at the time, and then this is how they separate the digits in my number, right? And it was easier for me to memorize that way. And till date in a way, I still kind of call out my cell number that way. Like I call the first four. I call the country code, of course, and then the first 4 digits, and then the next 3, and then the next 3. And it was funny, but I mean, I was able to memorize it that way. So basically, this is just proving the fact that if you break things down for people, it's going to be easier for them to understand it, to assimilate, right? Look at this example from Google, for instance, right? You would notice that there's a lot of actions to perform here, a whole lot of them, right? One will now tend to wonder, so what are the essence of these separators that we have here? These, for instance, we have new, open, and make a copy, and then there's a separation. And then we have share, email, download, and then there's a separation, right? And then we have rename, move, add, move to bin, and then there's a separation. Have you ever wondered why that is? It's because if you should try this if you're able to. If we have a version of this list of actions where there are no separations, it's going to look very, very overwhelming. It's going to look very, very overwhelming. We're not going to, like, you're going to feel like there are too much options, but just through the addition of tiny separations, I mean, these lines are so faint that, if you're not even looking at them very well, you probably won't see them, but they are making a whole lot of difference. That's the power of breaking things down into chunks. The third example will be that of this blog post, where imagine that you read through a post and then there are no formattings, there's no hierarchy, there's no separation. Everything is just boom, one paragraph, right? You would not be able to pick out important information. You get overwhelmed. And funniest part, when you read things like this, right, chances are you just read. You don't pick out points. You just read. Now, part of the reasons why sometimes people find it difficult to get through an entire book, right, is because the space, I mean, the distance from, like, the time it takes for you to get to a point where there's separation, right, it's too much. And then there are other books that everything, there's a lot of separations, right? There's a lot of headings, sub-headings, there's a lot of them, right? Books like that get a lot of people completing them, right? Let's come back to blog posts, for instance. So compared to this one where we have everything like listed out on the left, look at this iteration where there's a heading, right? And there's a paragraph after the heading, and then there's a sub-heading, and then there's, of course, we now have 3 paragraphs still under the sub-heading, but they were separated, right? Which means, of course, the sentences are shorter. They're not long and confusing, right? It's going to be, till tomorrow, right? People are going to find it easier to read this well-formatted version rather than this jam-packed one, right? So without taking too much time too much more time on this, I hope you can see the difference, right? There is, when it comes to design, every tiny update, every tiny iteration, every tiny adjustment can make a massive impact, right? I was giving an example of Netflix earlier. All they did, I mean, we're not even talking about the fact that the time that they would design the interface and everything, I don't even remember that happened. But what I can still remember to you today is that I no longer have to forward intros. It just goes. And outros also, like when an episode ends, it just, after a couple of seconds, it just starts the next episode without having to click next or forward through the outro, right? So every tiny decision you make that can improve the UX of your product helps. It goes a very, very long way. So Miller's law is basically saying that you should learn to break things down for your people. Don't feed them too much information in at once. Do you get? Don't give them a handful of information. Break it down so that it's easier for them to memorize, so that it's easier for them to remember, right? Large headings like this will help you remember the title, basically, right? So yeah, that's what Miller's law is trying to tell us. By the way, if you have questions, just hold on to them. We are going to address them after now. And then we have Fitts law. Basically, Fitts law says that the time to acquire a target is a function of the distance to and the size of the target, right? So basically, what this is trying to say is that the time is going to take your audience or your users to perform an action, to access a button that will help them perform an action, right? It's a function of, number one, the distance from their hand to the point where the target is, and then the size of the target. And we are going to break this down a little bit. So this little illustration we have here is basically an adaptation to how humans access the elements on whatever product that they are using, right? So of course, when you hold your phone, right, whether you're holding with your right hand or your left hand, anything that falls in the blue line, right, is accessible to you. Like your hand can easily get down to the bottom of your screen. But you would notice that it is a lot easier for your hand to access things in the green section. Why is that? Because the way our hands are structured, the way we hold things, right, our thumb automatically sits in the middle of our screen. So basically what this law is trying to say is that if you want people to, if there are primary actions that you want people to perform, and of course there are always primary actions, there are different kinds of actions. There are the primary actions, which are the first actions that you want people to be able to perform. And then the secondary actions are actions that can come later. And then tertiary actions are actions that can come way after secondary section. So for instance, if you have an e-commerce site, right, you want people to be able to access the product. That's the primary point of contact. It's the product. Like they should be able to scroll through, click into, read. Basically, everything that falls into this green section has to be the product, because that's why they are here. They're not here to come and see. If you take a look at this tertiary section, for instance, where we have the profile icon, the name of the person. These are not useful for me. I did not open this app to come and see my name. I know my name. I didn't open this app for me to have the app tell me good morning, good afternoon. I don't need that for anything. I opened the app to browse through the list of products that are available and actually make a selection. So that's why they are, of course, categorized as the primary actions. Now, after browsing through the items on the page, right, chances are you might want to, maybe you added to cart. I mean, if you use the likes of Amazon, right from here, there's always a button that allows you, save for later, add to cart and stuff like that. So imagine that you've added a lot of these things to your cart, right? And then you want to go and check it out, right? That's where the secondary section comes in, because now I can exit this home page and go deep into maybe my profile page where I would see my orders and stuff like that, right? So that it now makes sense for you to place actions, secondary actions, like at the bottom underneath, right? And of course, so basically what that means is that anything that falls into the green zone, right, people are going to access it faster. That's what the law is saying. Anything that falls in this the blue zone, people are going to access it a little bit slower than they will access the green items, right? And anything that falls in the tertiary zone, people are not necessarily going to access that until later. Like it's until later, because they are going to want to play around with things that are close to them first, things that they can easily access, right? So basically what the law is trying to say is that, so the reason why it's going to take them more time to access the thing in this red section, this tertiary section, is because of the distance, like where it's placed. Imagine that all the items in this tertiary section were placed in this green section, right? Then people will be able to access them faster, right? So basically what we can do with this information, with this law, is that whenever you're designing products, right, you should the things that you want people to access faster, you should make it easily accessible, right? When something is easily accessible, it's in front of them, they can easily access it, then they will be able to access it faster. But when it's not easily accessible, if you're placing a button far from where my thumb is, right, it's going to take me a while if I'm going to stress myself to go all the way to where the item is or where the element is to click it, right? Just, if it stresses me too much, I'm not going to go there. I'm just going to stick with the things that I can access and then rule with that, right? So basically, that's what Fitz's law is saying, that touch target should be large enough for users to accurately select them. Another problem that people face sometimes with accessibility is that elements can be too small, right? So I don't know if you've experienced any platform or any app where you are trying to click a button, but because that icon is too small, you're unable to do it, and then you have to start adjusting your hand trying to click. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. Nobody wants to do that, and you shouldn't subject your users to that, right? So basically, first of all, you should ensure that the targets are large enough to be accessible, right? And then they should be placed in areas where the interface allows them to be easily accessed, right? So of course, you would, from this illustration that we have here, anything that is, like we said, anything that falls in the green zone is comfortable to reach, like you can easily reach them. But if you place things too far from people's touch, it's going to take them a longer time, so long for them to be able to access stuff like that. Okay, so I think we spent a lot of time on that one. Another example would be the under vessel and under civic design, where they give you they give you controls on your steering wheel, right? I find that very, 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 very helpful and useful, because obviously your steering wheel has controls, right? You can see it, right? But it's far. Imagine that you're driving, you're behind the steering wheel, and then you're having to stretch to go adjust the sound. It's strenuous. Nobody wants to do that. All right. But just deciding to put the buttons on the steering wheel, for instance, if you it makes it easier for you to control your volume. It makes it easier for you to perform some other functions while you're still driving without distracting you, without causing any accidents, right? That's innovative. It solves a problem. It's a very small problem, right? But it solves it, and people enjoy it better. People enjoy driving better right now because they can, drive while listening to the song that they like, switch through songs without any risks of distractions or accidents. That goes a long way. That goes a long way, right? Yeah, so it's the accessibility. Your hands are already at 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock, right? And the buttons are there. So you are controlling your steering wheel while you're still able to access the button. And that's amazing. Yeah, so that's basically what Fitz's law is trying to tell us. Let's move on to the aesthetic usability effect. So what this law is basically saying is that users often perceive aesthetically pleasing design as design that's more usable, right? So naturally, when people see a design that looks good, they automatically believe that it's a lot better than a design that looks bad, right? People are attracted to nice things. That's just the law of nature. So even if you have two products side by side, where product A is more functional, but the design looks terrible, and then product B's design looks amazing, very, very pleasing to the eyes, but the user experience is terrible. At first glance, people are naturally going to be attracted to product B. Why? Because it looks good. It looks good. People want to be associated with good things. It's a fact. It looks good, so they want it, right? So basically, this law is not trying to say that good UX covers for bad UI. Nope. What this law is trying to help us understand is that your UI is just as important as your UX. We talked about this when we did Intro to Figma, that great products we get great products when great UI is combined with great UX. Simple, right? So let's move on to von Restov effect. And by the way, I switched away from this because it's pretty straightforward, right? There's no no need to spend too much time on this. We're just trying to say that you should always combine good UX with good UX. That if your product is great, like very, very functional, solves all the problem of this world, but looks terrible, people are going to port, like they're not going to give you a chance to prove yourself because of the bad interface that you're giving them, right? So UI is always as important as UX. Like they are both important. Then we have the von Restov effect. Basically, this is also known as the isolation effect. It basically says that when multiple similar objects are present, that the one that differs from the rest is most likely to be remembered. Simply put, if you have 10 blue balls and then one red ball, even though they are all balls, like they are all the same items, right? You are going to the red ball is going to stand out way more than the blue ones. That's basically what this law is saying. So it helps. So basically, it's trying to let us know that if you want something to stand out of the midst of every other thing, you just have to make that one slightly different, like, than the rest. Like it's as simple as that, right? If you have 10 iPhone 5s or 5 iPhone 5s and they are all like 4 of them are green, and maybe one of them is the titanium design, right? The titanium is going to stand out more out of everything because it's the only one that is looking different. That's basically what this law is saying. So you can keep that at the back of your mind when you're trying to design something and you have a lot of sections that look similar, but you want a particular item, right, or a particular section to stand out. All you have to do is make it slightly different, right? Make it different, change the color or something, right? But the moment you make, even if they are all similar, the moment you make an attribute of one of the elements different, then that one automatically jumps out and stands out to everyone, right? So here's an example of what we're talking about, right? You've seen a lot of sites that have pricing sections. You have hundreds of thousands of designs out there that has pricing section, and you will notice that every single time, there's always one of the cards that looks like this, that they just made slightly taller or maybe gave it a different color, and 99.999% of the time, the middle that one that pops out, that one that is different, is the first one people are drawn to. Even if this one says free, even if the one on the left says free, the fact that professional is the one that is looking different, professional is the one that you're going to be drawn to first, right? And then these guys are smart. They do things like now writing things like, oh, most of our users use this, or this is recommended, or this is that is that. They are all tactics, right? Because they want you to focus on that one. I mean, they are all prices, they are all different prices, right? But they had to add an element to make that one stand out from the rest. And that's basically what we're saying. And a simpler example would be these bunch of shapes that we have at the top, right? They are all the same, basically all the same. The only thing that is making this yellow pop out to us right now is the fact that it's yellow. Every single one of them has a dark background with the outline, with the yellow outline, but this one has a yellow hue, which is just taking all the attention from the rest of them. So basically, that's what the law is saying. If you want something to grab attention, make it slightly different. That's all. Like, it's as simple as that. Make it slightly different. Then we have the Doherty threshold, right? So basically, it says that productivity soars when a computer and its users interact at a pace that ensures that neither has to wait on the other. Now, to break this down, I don't know if you've ever experienced a situation where you're trying to perform an action, right? And it's just loading. Maybe you want to pay for something. Yeah. Let's use that example. Imagine that you want to, you're on your app, you probably use I don't know, maybe your banking app or something like that, and you're trying to pay for a service, or you're trying to connect your card to your e-commerce platform to pay, and then you've entered your details and everything, you've entered your password, and then it starts loading, right? Chances are, the longer the loading time takes, the more frustrated and the more scared you're going to get. You're going to get frustrated because it's wasting your time. And you're going to get scared because you're going to be wondering what is happening. Like, is it that you're about to get debited without the transaction being successful? A lot of thoughts are going to be running through your head. And that's why sometimes when the loading time takes so long, when it finally goes through and you see that success message, we now take a very deep breath because whew, that was a close one, right? So basically what this law is saying is that productivity is higher. People are more excited to use your product. People are more excited to use your app when they don't have to wait. So an example would be that. So another example would be, if imagine that you're trying to perform that same action, right? And then as this stuff is loading, right? As this is loading, you're seeing tiny snippets that are telling you stuff. So you're seeing a snippet that is telling you, oh, please hold on, we're trying to resolve this in the back end. And then probably another snippet that is saying, you have in 4 minutes it's going to be resolved. And then another snippet that says, oh yes, we're almost there. And that snippet that says, oh yeah, you can just take a coffee. Like, of course we understand that those snippets are not actually doing anything, but the fact that they're communicating with you is going to make a whole lot of difference, right? I can't count. I've seen that in a number of products where if you're waiting for an action to be completed, it just give you different snippets. Sometimes if you're trying to visit some websites, they use that, right? Maybe I've seen a portfolio website of someone that it's supposed to count from 0 to 100 before the site loads, but the loading was quite slow, right? I was already angry that the loading is slow, but what kept me going was the fact that the snippets, like the text was changing. I was seeing something like, oh, yeah, I'm getting the site ready for you. Oh, hold on, I'm trying to fix or something. There's this that I'm trying to fix. Like, it was just tiny geeky words, but I was enjoying reading through them. That I didn't even realize that I've been waiting for maybe like a minute or something for the site to load. All right. So here is an example of what I mean, right? Imagine that you're waiting for something to load, and then the system is also communicating with you. So in as much as you're waiting, you're also performing an action, which is reading through the information that is being provided to you, right? You are not going to feel the effect of the long wait as much as you would have felt it if there was nothing here. Imagine that this says preparing your design, and then the snippet underneath just says loading, right? You are going to be pissed that you're wasting so much time, and you just want to cancel this process and move on to the next thing, right? So basically what the law is trying to say is that you should ensure that one party does not wait for the other, right? Your user should not have to wait for too long for your product to be able to deliver what they need to them. If there's going to have to be a wait, you have to think of creative ways to make that wait worth it. Basically, that's what this law is trying to say, right? Of course, progress bars help make wait times tolerable. That's some of us what we've been saying, right? When there's a progress bar, or when there's information telling you that, oh, yeah, you're trying to perform this action, but hold on, we're still doing this. In as much as we're still waiting, right? But it's a little bit tolerable than, say, when there's no information being passed across at all, and you're just wondering what's happening in the back end. Right? That doesn't make sense. All right, so that's what the rarity threshold is all about. Now, we've covered the UX laws that we are going to be covering today. Now we're going to be talking about usability heuristics. They are basically like rules of thumbs, like guides that you should follow. So they are still in the same ballpark, right? Laws of UX, usability heuristics, they are still in the same ballpark. The more you understand every single one of them, the more you'll be able to come up with designs that actually solve problems, not just designs that look good, but designs that actually also feel good. All right. Okay. So one of the usability heuristics that we're going to be talking about is the visibility of system status, right? We just said something similar about this, where you should always keep the users informed about what is going on. Like, let them know. And you would notice this in your ride sharing apps today, Uber, Bolt, and the likes of them. When you perform an action, it tells you. In fact, both added an update a while back. I know it's a while back now, but the first time I saw it, I was shocked. Where if you order a ride, let's say you're still in the app and the app says your rider is going to arrive in maybe 5-10 minutes, right? If you close both, because it was not in existence before. If you close both, you can see the car driving towards you in your notification panel. Like if you just click to open your notification panel, you see that. Like, so you don't have to open both back to see what is going on, to see how long the rider is going to take before they get to you. Like you can easily see that from your notification panel, right? So this just makes a lot of sense. Basically, you should let them know at every single point in time, like what is going on. If you're waiting for your system to, connect to your rider, like let them know. If you're waiting, and by the way, I can see your question, Bukola. I would attend to it after now. Just hold on to it. Let's wrap up with this session first. So if your system is doing anything that requires the users to wait, right? Let them know exactly what is going on. Don't make them guess, right? The more you do this, the more you would see people resonate more with your app, right? Because you're not keeping them in the dark. Your app is basically holding itself accountable, right? So if it's going to take 20 minutes for a driver to get to where you are, the app is telling you, look, we understand that 20 minutes is a long time, but see, it's going to take 20 minutes for the driver to get here. So you cannot decide to either wait for the 20 minutes or up off. But imagine that it's going to take 20 minutes and they don't tell you that it's going to take 20 minutes. They only tell you that, oh, hold on, your rider is on its way. Your rider is on his way. And then you're just waiting. 10 minutes go by, you're wondering, what is happening? Why are they not telling me anything? 20 minutes go by, like the rider is now coming. Even though the app already estimated the arrival time to be 20 minutes, because you did not know, you're going to get angrier. So that's how it works. Ensure that the system status, the status of whatever it is that your users are performing is always visible. Then we have a match between system and the real world, right? So the design should speak to the user's language, right? Use words or phrases or concepts that are familiar to the user. Basically, now Apple has gone above and beyond to actually to nip this in the bud, right? You would see that if you look at the Apple frameworks icons today, you notice that a lot of the depictions that they use are similar to real life items, right? So there is no way you see a trash can icon like this and you would not know that means, trash. Like trash is literally trash, right? Look at the calendar icon. You know that, oh, this is a calendar. They don't have to write it. Like they literally don't have to write it. And that's the fun part about this, about understanding how people think and try to build your products for them, right? There's no way I'll see this video icon and I won't know that, oh, this is my video call section, or this mail icon, and I won't know that it's, oh, this is my mail. This is where I send mails and everything, right? So basically, if you want your designs to be, or your solutions to be completely relatable, right, you need to try to follow real world conventions, right? Just give them the information in a way that is natural. Basically, don't give them information in a way that they are trying to understand what is happening, right? They don't know what this means. Like, what is this icon? Like, why are you showing me this? What is happening? Why am I scrolling from bottom to top? Imagine a site that makes you scroll from bottom to top. That's just weird. Right? You're supposed to scroll from the top to the bottom because that's how people read. But if you're trying to be innovative and then you decide that, you know what, let me go against the norm. Let me create a site where you start from the bottom and then you scroll to the top. No, please. Like it's not going to work. Right? Always ensure to follow the real world conventions. Always ensure that the elements that you're using, everything is relatable to people, right? Everything is related to people. It's very, very important. Then we have error prevention. Now, a lot of us have probably used platforms where you're trying to set up a password for a new account, right? And then you're inputting passwords, but the system is telling you there's an error. Unfortunately, there are a lot of systems out there that don't tell you exactly what that error is, right? So you're just on your own trying to change the elements that you're putting in, trying to change the characters, making them longer, making them shorter, but you keep getting errors and you don't know why. Now, that is a very, very bad practice, a very, very terrible practice, I may add. the best way to prevent errors when users are using your platform and save them from frustration is to tell them exactly what they need to do to prevent those errors. So this illustration that we have here is a perfect example. So if I'm trying to set up a password for a new account and I'm seeing all this, I know for a fact that if I decide to not add a lowercase letter like I've been requested to, I am the one looking for trouble. Right? I am the one looking for trouble. So this is going to help completely remove this is going to help completely remove any form of confusion, any form of disturbance, any form of nuisance, and make the process of the users a lot more seamless, right? So that's basically what error prevention is. Tell people what they need to do. Give them, of course, you're already telling them at the top that, oh, please create a secure password, including the criteria below. And now we went a step further to actually telling them the criteria, right? You must impute 2 numbers, you must impute 1 dash, you must impute 3 special characters. So obviously, when they've done everything that's requested there, they can easily proceed to the next step, easily. But I can't count the number of times I've experienced processes where I'm trying to choose a password and I keep getting error and I don't know what's happening. I put in uppercase, lowercase letters, numbers, special. I don't even know what's happening, right? And I think the last time that happened to me, I stopped that process. Right. So basically, error prevention, ensure that you tell them exactly what to do so they won't encounter any errors in the first place. Very, very important. And then we have help users recognize, diagnose, and recover from errors. Now, imagine that a user tries to access a page in your site or a page in your app, and that page no longer exists. Now, that's where the likes of error 404. I don't know if you've, a lot of you should have come across an error 404 at some point, right? Basically, error 404 happens when it's on websites, by the way, when you're trying to access a page and then that page does not exist. The default page that now appears is an error 404 page. Now, most error 404 page tells you, oh, this site does not exist or this site has been moved. And then they provide you a button to take an action. Most times those buttons say things like, oh, go back home or take me home or go back. There's always a button, right? But imagine an error 404 page that does not have any action button. Like nothing. You are there, you're trying to access a page that does not exist, and you're there, but you don't know where to go from there. That is terrible practice. Very, very terrible. Another instance would be if you're using a product and you accidentally delete something, right? I don't know if any of you have ever experienced that, but that is scary. If especially it's a very, very important document and then, you're scared and everything. Good products allow you to undo actions. That's why till tomorrow, like designers will always tell you, thank God for Control Z. Control Z is the shortcut we use to revert actions that we've taken. So if I was designing something and I mistakenly do something I wasn't supposed to do, I can just hold my Control Z or Command Z, and then it's going to revert back, right, to the previous setting. In fact, that saved me earlier today. I was building a site for a client using Webflow, by the way, and then I had accidentally made adjustments to a component. And you know how components work. When you use a component in multiple places, if you make an adjustment to that component in one place, it affects the components everywhere else. So I had done that, and I did not know until I had gone far. Because when I had gone far, I was like, my goodness, what have I done? So if not that, I was able to revert that process. I mean, I probably would have been crying on this call right now. But so allowing people to bounce back when they make errors is one of the determining factors of really great products. Because now people know that they are safe. Like people know that no matter what happens, I can revert. That's why even if you're designing right now, you can be joking with your friend and be like, I'm going to delete your design. I'm going to delete, and then you just, Command A, select everything and delete. The only thing that gives you F1 to do that is that you know that if you hold your control or command and you press your Z button, everything's going to come back. In fact, we even joke about that these days, right? So it's very, and that's how you know that Figma is doing well. And a lot of design tools also do that. So yeah, allow them to bounce back. You should always allow people to bounce back when they encounter an error or when they face a problem, right? Allow them to bounce back, suggest a solution for them. Okay, user control and freedom. Now, there are softwares or apps or platforms out there that make it difficult for people to exit. I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but I was trying to access a web page maybe a couple of weeks ago. I can't remember vividly anymore. But I visited the page, and as I was scrolling through, a modal came up. So for people that don't know what modals are these pop-ups that show up, like those pop-ups that show up and cover the entire screen, and you cannot close them until you perform the action that they are telling you to perform. That's what modals are, right? And I looked everywhere. Trust me, I looked. Sometimes these people are so smart that they put the close button somewhere far so that you wouldn't see it and you'll be forced to perform whatever action they need you to perform. And most times those actions are things like, oh, subscribe to our newsletter or click here for this. Like, it's ridiculous. I don't want to do that. So why are you forcing me? So sometimes they put these buttons, they make them faint, make them not so visible, and then they put them in one corner. I looked for this close button. I could not find any. Funny thing is, I now realized that I could not find any because there was no close button. Like, I literally could not close. They were telling me that, see, bro, if you want to do anything on this site, you have to perform the action that I want you to perform. Guess what? I left. Like, there are millions of other sites I can use to get whatever it is that I want. You guys are not serious. That was what I said in my mind, dude. I was not like I could tell them that. But yeah, it was frustrating because I spent, maybe minutes or seconds of my life that I was never getting back trying to find a close button that didn't exist. It was frustrating, right? So people see, if your product is good, if your product is amazing, you don't have to cajole people to stay. You don't have to make people stay. People will stay. People will stay. It's the same way Amazon does not beg you to check out their site. I don't even think I've seen a lot of Amazon ads. Wait, how many people have seen? That's true. I don't see a lot of Amazon ads. Amazon doesn't necessarily advertise, right, as much as a lot of other brands, right? So obviously they are not begging you to come, right? So it makes sense that they are feeling like that because they allow you to exit. There's no way to hold you down. There's nobody forcing you to stay, right? So if you are going to design great products, you should also ensure that you give people their freedom, the control. Don't force them to do things. Allow them to explore your app anyhow that they want. Allow them to go around and do things. And if your app is great, they will always come back and even invite friends, right? That's very important. That's why you see that this is important. They have a back button, an undo and redo button, a reload button. Basically, you can easily go back. And this experience makes a lot of sense. Then consistency and standards, right? Like we said earlier, people are used to a certain way of things. Don't reinvent the wheel, right? Don't reinvent the wheel. Speak to what people know. People understand that when they see a button like this, it means that they can sign up with their Google account. This one means that I can sign up with my Apple. This means that I can put in my username and password. These are basic standards. Don't change them. Don't change them. Stick to what works, right? Nobody's going to come to tell you that, oh, if I use this kind of button in your design, you stole my, nah, nobody can claim that, right? So don't let the fear, oh, this person will say I stole it. They're not stealing anything. These are basic standards, right? So don't reinvent the wheel, stick to the standard. Then recognition rather than recall. This is quite similar to one of the laws that we talked about, where if you want something to stand out, make it stand out. Make it stand out. So, excuse me. You can use this a lot for things like instructions on your designs or on your platforms, right? This example is basically helping us understand what we're seeing here. So imagine that you're typing something into a search field. You are maybe on Amazon, for instance, trying to search for a product, right? And then the moment you type in letters, right, products that are available, that have those letters, now starts getting highlighted. That is a way for people to take notes that they are on the right track. It's a way for people to identify that they are like what they are looking for exists. I don't know if you understand. So basically, make things stand out to people. Make things stand out to people. Don't just leave everything the same. Remember, people are coming there to perform specific actions. So if I'm looking for product XYZ, right, and I type XYZ in the search bar, the product XYZ should be visible to me, should be highlighted, right? And if I am reading through a particular bunch of instructions and you want to highlight or you want to iterate something that, oh, this is important, like this is important, don't miss it, then it makes sense for you to make that particular word or that particular sentence bigger or bolder or whatever, right? So remember, remember that it's important that you break things down for people and emphasize on the things that you want them to see. Very, very important. Then flexibility and efficiency of use. We've talked about this, right? Figma has a lot of tools, a lot of actions that you can perform, but then again, they also have a lot of shortcuts. I was saying control command Z earlier for undoing stuff, but of course, there's a longer process of doing that, where you can go and click on your file, file, and then click down to undo, and that's longer. Of course, it's going to perform the same action. It's still going to save us stress of recovering. It's going to save us the ability to recover what we've lost. But then they decided to make the process easier and just give us command Z, command C instead, right? So you need to think about this and also apply it in your dealings, in your work, right? In as much as you are allowing people to make, you're providing a solution to people, always remember to provide a faster way to perform those actions. That's why shortcuts exist in a lot of applications. You will notice that, a lot of dashboards have shortcuts to different sections of the app. It's not a mistake, it's necessary, right? It's not a mistake at all. So shortcuts are, think of them as shortcuts. Yes, when you're designing, always remember that in as much as designing products for users, and there's a process, there's a flow, thinking of a way to make the flow shorter, right, would also go a long way to helping your users really enjoy what they're saying, right? All right. So aesthetic and minimalist design. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Basically, make your design look good. Like, it should be clean and nice and fine. Reduce the information. Nobody wants a newspaper type approach. Reduce it. Make everything minimal. Make everything neat and straightforward. Like we said, people are naturally attracted to nice design. So even if your product is solving the problem in this world, you are going to lose users if you don't give them something aesthetically pleasing. So keep that in mind for the next time you're going to be designing stuff. And then provide people help and documentation. Now, this is very, very important because there are a lot of products, a lot of tools out there that if you don't have access to the documentation, you'll not be able to use them, right? And the thing is that sometimes it's not possible that users will be able to understand every single thing that your app does. Sometimes users are going to use your app to do whatever they want, how they see fit, right? But it's now left to you to provide them a learning resource that can help them understand, in as much as this app is doing ABC for you, the way you understand how to use it, please note that you can also do DEF if you follow these steps, these guidelines, right? And that's where the help desk comes. Zuri has a help desk, for instance, where if you have questions, you can just visit the help desk and they will answer them for you. If there are things I don't understand about how the program works, the answers are always there. These documentation and helpful platforms are necessary because now, instead of us answering one question 50 billion times, we can just direct people there. Hey, look, if you guys want to know how to do ABC, click on this link, you'll find all the answers there. As simple as that. And anybody from anywhere at any time can go there to learn about whatever it is that they want to learn about, right? See how something so simple is solving a lot of problems, saving us a lot of time. That's the importance of making, design iterations to improve UX. So these are some heuristics that, we're covering. Like I said, as you could have seen, there are also very, very similar to the laws of UX that we talked about. So we're going to share these slides with you so that you can go through at your own time too. But remember, these laws, there's a whole lot more of them, right? But if you can master these ones and burn them into your head, you are going to create solutions. You're going to create designs that not only stand out, but they are very, very functional and efficient, and that that people can relate with, because that's really the end goal here. Anybody that is going to want to pay you as a product designer is going to want to pay you because you're solving their problem. And the best way you can solve people's problems is understanding the exact laws to apply when and where, right? And understanding how to craft a user interface, a clean and beautiful user interface that is going to accompany, the user experience that you built out. So at the end of the day, right, it all comes down to understanding these basics. These are the basics of UX. Like they are the basics, the laws. This has to be, you need to make the important things more accessible. You need to make, your design needs to speak to people. You need to, make things faster. Don't waste people's time. These are all basic things, that you need to know, in order for you to craft aesthetically pleasing designs and, and user experience, right? So we've come to the end of this session, and like I said, of course, these links are available. You can also click there to learn more about everything. We're going to share this in the group after now. But yeah, that's basically what we're covering today. I hope this session has been impactful to everyone. Now I'm going to stop sharing my screen and then allow anyone and everyone that has questions to just raise up their hands. We can't take a lot. I don't think we can take a lot today because I think that, okay, there's another class that should hold. But how many people have questions? Let's start from there. And then maybe the next time we open the call, we can okay, if you have any questions, just drop them in the chats. We can do that in 5 minutes. If there are no questions, we can call it a day. And then your assignments would be, your assignments are already on the LMS already, actually, but you needed to go through this first before you understand how to answer them. So, questions? Okay, is it okay to use different sizes buttons in the cell? Okay, so it's Bukola, right? Yeah, I think it's Bukola. The answer to your question is there is, for some design systems, right? They have their own standards. Do you get? So you are allowed to craft a setting or a standard that works for you, right? But you have to do that at your own discretion, right? So you simply cannot create something that is extremely small, right, as a button, or create something that is extremely big. Do you understand? The bottom line or the underlying factor here is that every single thing needs to be accessible. Your buttons, your buttons for mobile, for tab, for web, they need to be accessible. Do you get? Right? So you can choose how big or how small you want them to be according to your discretion. But remember that once you create a system, you have to stick with it. Right. So if you create a button for, you can have different button sizes. You can have large, and a good example of that would be if you go to some sites today and you notice that there's a button on the navbar, right? By the way, the navbar is that section at the very top that holds all the links, all those about, that's your navbar. Now you notice that if you go to some sites like that, you see that on the far right section, there's a button there that is different from how the other buttons, the other links in that navbar are. And then you notice that if you scroll down into sections of the page, you will see a button that is similar to that, but this one is bigger. Now it makes sense for the button in that navbar to be smaller because you can't have overly large buttons there. That place is just going to be weird. It's going to be too big and too tall. You don't want that. So of course we have a button, but we have different sizes of that same button. Now that means that is the system that I've set.
So if I've created two buttons, one large and one small, those are the two buttons that I'm going to have to use everywhere else. It's not like I will now go somewhere else and go and be increasing the size of that button there, making it times 2 or times 3. That doesn't make sense. Right? That's where your design system or your style guide comes into place. Right? Once you have a style guide and then you create all the components that you want to create that you're going to be using, your buttons, and if you've not heard about style guides before now, please don't worry. We're going to cover that too. Do you get? But yeah, a style guide is like a guidelines, like a system that guides your entire design process, right? So things like all the buttons that you want to use, the headings, the font size, the font size, the colors, the spacing, everything would have been preset or predetermined inside the style guide. Right. And then you can now start picking those elements and be using them in your designs. But like I said, you can create different button sizes for different products. But the underlying factor is that they have to be accessible and they can't look weird. Design has to do with the eyes. It's what people see that they will judge you by. So if at a glance I'm seeing your buttons and your buttons look overly big, I'm going to be thrown off. Right. So yeah, it's to your discretion, really. But keep it at the back of your mind that it can't be too big and it can't be too small. Okay. Somebody says when you search and it brings related or similar content, you said, is it the work of a UI UX? Okay. It's so I was not talking about the functionality, the engineering behind it. I was talking about the design. And that's to Dockers. Before the engineers are going to implement it, you first have to design it. Do you understand? So it is during the design phase that you would have to design an iteration. Basically, design a view of how it's going to look when people are searching. So it's not like you're designing the search and you're making the search work. No, you are only designing how it's going to work. So that search bar that you're talking about, you've designed it, and then you design the drop down or whatever that comes up underneath it, and design and indicate how the texts are going to show. So when the developers see this, they will now understand that, oh, when we're implementing and people are searching, we should ensure that the letters that correlate to what they are typing in should be bold. Do you understand? But it's your job from the design phase to show them how it's going to look. You basically have to design so you can show them, right? And then when you've shown them, they can carry on from there. Can someone also use material design by Google to check for? Yes, you can actually. Material design is Google's provided design system. So yes, you can use that to check. You can use that to check. One of the rules of thumb, creating help sections. If a product, this is from Sam, he said one of the rules of thumbs is creating help section. If a product is new, must it necessarily have a FAQ section? Think about it this way. If you're building a product, you have to assume that people would misuse it. Just assume that they will misuse it. Like, that's a fact. So it's left to you to now address questions and concerns that they might have before they have to come online and start dragging you or start tagging you up and down to answer those questions. So I would say that the help section is very, very important. The help section is very, very important. And for more advanced products, documentation is also very important, right? So think about it. An example of documentation. I gave an example earlier. Actually, I talked about Zurich's help desk that has a list of past questions that people have asked, answers to those questions, and you can also ask us questions. Now, when you think about Zurich, what we do is pretty straightforward. We help people start their tech career. We basically provide them with the beginner's training that they need. It's straightforward. Now you now come back to, okay, so if it's that straightforward, why do people have questions? Do you get? But people would always have questions like, okay, you're telling us how long it's going to take. What are the things that you're not saying? What are the things that I'll need in those 3 months? What are things that I should be expecting to, like, where are the tutors going to be coming from? Like, which companies are they coming from? Why should I trust them? Do you get? There will always be questions. Even though we have it at the back of our mind that our messaging is straightforward, people are always going to have. So it's left to you, like, to now try to address these things and just explain. The truth is, the help desk is also a way for you to explain more, because sometimes you can't fit in all the information in the app directly. It will be too overwhelming. So you put the important things there, the simpler things that you can easily do there. And then you can use your help section for a more in-depth explanation. I hope that answers your question, Sam. What are the factors to consider in product review? Okay, this is going far. You don't have to worry about product review now. We're going to cover QA, QA and the rest, when you're QAing products and stuff like that. So when we get there, we're going to talk about review. Just don't forget to bring it back up again when we get to that point, Samuel. Okay, Kende, if you could drop your question in the chat, so that'd be great. I think you're the last one, and after you, we're just going to wrap up. So we're going to give you like a minute to drop your question so I can address it, and then we'll wrap up from there. But by the way, for the rest of us, I hope we're able to okay, you know what, you can unmute yourself, but you have to make the question really short. It can't be too long, because another class is supposed to hold. You can unmute yourself.
Okay, sorry. Sorry, please. It has to do with the last question assignment given to us. I had serious issue with the use of color. So I'm thinking, I believe there should be a course that will take care of that.
Oh, yeah.
Also, can you hear me, Lola?
Yes, I can hear you. Go on.
Also, when I tried to use Figma too, I believe Fola Jomi made mention of Control D. When I did Control D, I made a button, I tried to copy it. The text was showing at the left panel. So I had to start redesigning each of my button. But I believe that there is a shortcut to that. I saw a lot of information, so I don't know which one is which. So that's what I want to clarify. Thank you.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. For your first question, yes, we have a course on psychology of color that is coming, after now. So you don't have to worry about. We'll teach you how to choose colors, how to, know what colors to use for, to evoke the right emotions and stuff like that. And for your Figma related question, I wouldn't want to delay the rest of us. So send me a. Don't worry, I'm giving you access to send me a DM on Slack. All right, and I'm going to hop on a call with you or something. I'll figure out what the problem with what you're facing is. All right, so thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. Once again, apologies for the delay before starting. We'll try as much as possible to ensure that doesn't happen again. And we're so sorry. Yeah, so that's pretty much it for today. I hope you were able to learn one or two things. And I hope that this has given you some more understanding into why, user experience is very important. And we hope that with these few things, you will be able to craft more functional user experiences in your in the products that you're going to be working on. Yeah, good luck with your assignments, guys. If you have any other questions, please be sure to drop them on Slack in the general design channel, and then we would try to attend to you as soon as we can. Yeah, thank you very much, guys. Cheers. Bye.